What's up, guys? Fat Archon here, bringing another army view video. Today we're going over a pretty good one, I'd say. World Eaters. World Eaters, okay, admittedly, I think they might be kind of hard to rank, because you do have to bear in mind they're like almost a fully melee army in a 10th edition world, but I do think they have the data sheets to back them up. Pretty much every unit, like, is definitely going to kill its points worth in melee. So if you can get them in there, yeah, I do think World Eaters are looking very powerful. For melee armies, they're probably the most viable one, or one of the most viable ones. Like, yeah, there's going to be a couple armies you'll struggle into. Custodes, I think, will be a big one that you got to, like, plan for. But aside from that, yeah, man, I'm really liking World Eaters, really liking what I'm seeing here. It helps, too. That's freaking Khorne we're talking about. Who doesn't have a little Khorne deep down inside of them, you know? So, yeah, let's hop right into it. Oops, wrong one. All right, so army rule, they actually have a really good one. So the first time I saw this, I hated it. I was like, okay, so we're playing Yahtzee with our World Eaters, great. But as you, like, read more into it and learn, like, the math behind it or whatever, it's not too bad. Goonhammer has a really good article on the math behind this. I'll do my best to link it in the description if you want to see it. But essentially, almost all of these, almost all except for the most important one, unbridled bloodlust, almost all of them you have about a 90% chance to get on average. So pretty much you'll get to pick these like most of the time, the ones you want. What this does is, so at the start of each battle round, you roll 8 dice and basically use those results to choose one of the options. It is a little like Yahtzee, but at least you get to pick a bonus you need. You can, for the most part, aside from like special rules or whatever, you only get to use 2 per battle round, so do bear that in mind. The first one is very good. Like, it seems sort of like milk toast or whatever, but it's very powerful. Rage, Fuel, Invigoration. So any double, so you basically always get it. You add 2 inches to the move characteristic of your models. That's fantastic. You'll probably use that every single time for the first turn. Like, I would definitely use it. Getting somebody like Mr. Angron up here, up to, I think he goes up to like a 16-inch move if you do that. Super powerful. Definitely want to use that. Next one is pretty good as well, Wrathful Devotion. So all your models get a 6-up Feel No Pain. If they already have a Feel No Pain, they get a 5-up in Feel No Pain. Extremely powerful. That's something you'll use once you're like in the thick of it, like turn 3 or whatever. That's probably something you'll switch over instead of the movement or the Advancement Charge, which we'll get to. Very good to have, especially obviously on units that already have a Feel No Pain. Next one, Martial Excellence, double 3-up, so you probably always get it. Basically, get Sustain Hits 1. Excellent ability. More is always better, and you definitely have the strength and the damage to like back this up. So very powerful. That's also something that probably turn 3 and beyond you just automatically switch to. Next one after that is good, Total Carnage. So on a 4-up, you get a Fight on Death. Fight on Death is incredibly powerful. In 9th edition, I pretty much only played Chaos Space Marines, and I pretty much only did Creations of Bile, and I won, like, any melee army I was fighting, like orcs or something. It was basically an automatic win. It almost wasn't fair, so it's good that they changed it to on a 4-up. That said, the 4-up's kind of what hurts this. It becomes variable. There will be times when you, like, don't get any Fight on Death, so it's really not as valuable as it might seem. Truthfully, I wouldn't use that one as often. Although, you know, especially if you're, like, down to the end and most of your guys are dead or whatever, yeah, that'll be pretty good, especially if you can get off on a dude like Angron before he goes out. Next one, Warp Blades. You get lethal hits. That's pretty good. If you're fighting like Knights or T10 vehicles, which you'll likely see like everywhere, that's obviously very valuable to have. I will say you got pretty good data sheets for the most part when it comes to being able to take on vehicles. So a lot of times you might choose the sustain hits over that, but never hurts to keep it in your back pocket. The last one is probably the most important one, and the one you'll always want to use turn 1 if able. Unbridled Bloodlust. So on a double 6 or a triple 4-up, so it's kind of hard to get. I believe Goonhammer said it was like 60% when you combine those two. Basically, you get Advance and Charge. You are going to need to get into melee ASAP. Like, if you're playing World Eaters and you're, like, newer to them or whatever, your hyper-focus needs to be, how the hell do I get this guy into combat, like, ASAP? Like, I need to be their last turn. So, that's something you just automatically should use first turn every single time. Maybe if it's, like, impossible to get your first turn charge, or, you know, maybe you got to plan it out for whatever freaking reason. Maybe you won't do it. But for the most part, I think you're going to do the add 2-inch move and Advance and Charge pretty much every single time. For their detachment ability, it's great. For World Eaters, this is great. Anytime they complete a charge, so you do have to charge, you get +1 to your strength and +1 to your attacks. Again, more is better. That's a very good detachment ability. Basically plays into what your army wants to do anyways, so excellent to have, very good to have. So for stratagems, it was funny, I was thinking about this. For Thousand Suns, I said that they might have the best stratagems in the game. By the way, looking back at the video, I'm realizing, I'm like, okay, maybe they didn't have the very best, like, really, but they had some really good options. World Eaters, on the other hand, I would argue, like, yeah, they have some of the best stratagems. Like, almost every single one here is usable and helpful, so you are going to want to be, like, using your CP wisely. That will be a challenge, but a lot of these are usable. We'll probably go over all of them, in fact. So, the first one, Gory Massacre, this one's alright. In the fight phase, a unit of yours that charged and ended up killing a unit, basically, on your opponent's next turn, any of their units within 6 inches of your unit have to take a battle shock test, and it, like, counts as their battle shock. They won't take another one after that or whatever. That's pretty clutch. That can be pretty clutch. There will definitely come times when, like, that can decide the game or help decide the game, like, or, you know, just prevent points, period. If you manage to deep strike and hurt, like, 5 of my cultists or whatever, and then you're going to force me to take a battle shock test, like, that's going to hurt. I'm probably going to spend the CP on it, or, like, dread taking the test, so that's pretty valuable. Admittedly, you know, there's ways around it, so it's not the best thing ever, but I'd use it most times if it came up. Next one, for the Skull Throne, it's only 1 CP. Fight phase, basically you choose a unit from your army that hasn't fought yet. Until the end of the phase, you get +1 to wound to characters, monsters, and vehicles. That is A+. That is fantastic. Anything that helps you take down knights, vehicles, and even characters, definitely very good to have. I would use that all the time. Another one they got, for the Blood God. So only one CP in your fight phase, just after you destroyed an enemy unit. You get to make a Blessings of Khorne roll. That's very useful. That is going to be very, very useful. I'll spill the beans now with Angron. So Angron's whole thing is, like his big thing, is if he dies, you can bring him back on I believe it's a 666 or whatever. Anything that gives you ways, more chances to bring back Angron is incredibly powerful, and definitely something you should use. If Angron's dead, I would argue you need to use this every single time. There's also other, like, enhancements and whatnot that key off of this that will give you even more chances at rolls. This is one of the more powerful stratagems for World Eaters, I'd argue. Try to remember that for sure. The next one, Khorne Cares Not. This one's 2 CP, fight phase only, but basically get -1 damage. Incredibly powerful. Again, something you'll probably want to use on Angron a lot of times, even though you can bring him back. Otherwise, pretty much any unit, you use it on even... Okay, not Jackals, but Terminators or whoever, very powerful, especially versus 2 damage attacks. Yeah, definitely something to use. It sucks that it's 2 CP, but kind of expected. Up next, they got Blood Offering, so you can use this any phase. This happens after one of your units has been destroyed. Basically, they get sticky objectives that turn. This one also is very, very good. I would probably use it every single time. Well, okay, assuming the enemy is not going to take that objective, like, directly after, I would use this every single time. You got a random unit in the back of the board sent on objective, and they get shot by indirect. Yeah, man, just use this. It's basically, in a sense, it's like 5 victory points, and I would definitely pay 1 CP for 5 victory points. If I could start the game and just spend all my CP on victory points, I would do it. And then the last one, arguably the most powerful, Apocalyptic Frenzy. Basically, it gives you an auto 6 for your advance. You don't roll the dice, you just get a 6. On certain units, that is, like, nigh mandatory. That's probably something, if you get the Advance and Charge ability, this is probably something we'll use first turn every single time, because, you know, it helps you get into melee, you gotta use it. Very powerful. I love all those stratagems. Like, every single one of those stratagems is very valuable and useful. For enhancements, they also got some strong ones. So, the first one is nigh mandatory. Favorite of Khorne. Essentially, whenever you roll a, whatever the hell it's called, Blessings of Khorne roll. Whenever you roll a Blessings of Khorne, you can re-roll it immediately. If you don't like the result, you can re-roll it. The issue is it's really expensive. It's like 30 points, so you're definitely paying for it. But, again, like I mentioned earlier, anything that gives you the chance to bring back Angron when he dies, because he will almost assuredly die, super valuable to have. I think that's an auto-include. The first time I saw it and I saw the points or whatever, I wasn't really sure on it, but thinking about it more, like, again, the more chances you get to bring him back, or just get advance in charge, like, that's all just as important. Game starts and you don't get the advance in charge, re-roll that shit, man. Very powerful. I'd bring it every single time. Make sure you put on a character who'll survive as well. Next one, also very good, Berserker Glaive. It's kind of expensive, it's 25 points, but you add 1 to the attacks and damage, and then if you made a charge move, which hopefully you're doing, you get plus a D3. You toss that on something like a Master of Executions, or even like a Demon Prince or whatever, like, whoo, they become like anti-everything. That's very powerful. Now, do you bring it every time? Maybe. It is 25 points, so pretty much if you got 25 points left over, like, yeah, I would bring it. Next one, Battle Lust. This one's alright. Essentially, you get to do a heroic intervention for free, even if somebody else used it. All of your guys are good at melee as it is, so most of them should be able to take care of themselves. I would not bring that one. Last one is also very powerful. Helm of Brazen Ire. Essentially, you get to have damage on your model. If you put that on somebody with a good amount of wounds, like, Invocatus or whoever, very, very powerful. That one is kind of spendy as well. I think it's, 25, so tidbit spendy. It's kind of a toss-up between that and Berserker Glaive. Like, do you need to survive better, or do you want to kill more? Up to you. Those are all very powerful abilities. Definitely help world leaders do what they're trying to do, aka murder stuff. So very happy with the book. I think GW did pretty good there. If there is a drawback, aside from being melee and whatnot, a lot of their sheets are more expensive than the other books for some reason, which kind of hurts because, world leaders being melee, they do need all the help they can get. So that does kind of suck. You'll see in a little bit, but yeah. For data sheets, alright, we're gonna start with a very good one, I'd say. Angron. Sick-ass model, so, like, you kind of want to run them anyways. 14-inch move, fantastic. Don't forget you can add plus 2 inches to that, so essentially a 16-inch move. Woo! T11, 2-up save with a 4-up invul, so quite resilient. 16 wounds, love it. You can also give him the 6-up feel no pain if you want. For melee weapons, it's freaking Angron we're talking about here. So it's strike profile. If you charge, remember, +1 strength, +1 attack. But baseline, it's going to be 8 attacks, hit on 2s, of course. Strength 16, fantastic. -4 AP, woohoo. D6 +2 damage. This guy's just going to, like, shred anything he touches, including knights and whatnot. He also has a fantastic sweep profile. So 18 attacks, hit on 2s, strength 8, potentially 9, -2 AP, 2 damage each. So that'll be clearing marines left and right. Very good to have. For his abilities, his first one, Reborn in Blood. So this is like his most important one and kind of why he's so expensive. Each time he dies, or each time you make a Blessings of Khorne roll, if he's dead and you get 666, you can bring him back to life and then bring him down in the next reserves. Very, 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 very good to have. Like I mentioned earlier, the fact that you can, like, re-roll your Blessings of Khornes multiple times means that, you can improve the odds with this. I think baseline, without any other buffs or whatever, it's like 12.5%. If you include the other buffs you get, you can get it up to, I believe it's like 20% when you count it, and that's without re-rolling them or whatever. So, like, the odds are still pretty low, but it can happen, and eventually will happen. So, definitely with Angron, you want to, like, rush him in ASAP. Don't really worry. Try not to suicide him, but it's not the worst thing ever if he does suicide. Yeah, dude, he's going to wreck face, especially with the advance and charge, giving him automatic 6 with Apocalyptic Frenzy, all that stuff. You're basically getting what? So 22-inch threat range, right to start with, and that's before charges. Very good. I would argue he's an auto-include. He is quite expensive. He's 415 points, but it makes sense when there's that chance that he's going to be coming back to life. On top of that, so he's a Primarch, so he gets the Primarch ability. So each turn you pick each charge phase. So you kind of want to think these through, at least for first turn. Potentially you pick something that'll affect your shooting, maybe. But the first one, so while friendly world leaders within 6 inches of this model, each time they make a charge roll, you add 1 to the roll. That's pretty clever. Definitely want to help your charges. It's too bad it's like only 1. I'd rather have like re-roll charges, but I'll take it. The next one he's got, so while friendly world leaders is below starting strength and within 6 inches of them, you add 1 to their attacks characteristic. That one's alright. You don't really want to be, like, losing models if you can help it. That said, if Angron's taken even a single wound and maybe has nobody around him or whatever, like, you might pick that because then he himself will get the an additional attack. So, not bad. Last one, Righteous Slaughter. While friendly world leaders within 6 inches, each time a unit makes an attack of any kind, so ranged or melee, reroll the hit roll. That's probably the one you're automatically going to use. Definitely valuable to have. Also, too, I believe you get to pick one of these, even if he's in reserve, like ready for deep strike. Doesn't mention anything about him being on the battlefield, so keep that in mind, and do definitely try to keep in mind that it's in the charge phase you pick it, so you will get to benefit from it in the shooting phase beforehand, depending on the timing and whatnot. I like him a lot. Normally, I wouldn't rate something that's like 415 points and all that stuff super high up. But this guy, the fact that you can almost guarantee the first turn charge makes him very valuable. And obviously, the fact that he can sometimes come back to life, whew, definitely getting your points worth if he does that. So yeah, I'm putting him S tier for sure. Next up, we got Khorne. Khorne has usually struggled. He's always had a very bad downside to him. Admittedly, in this edition, they finally kind of fixed it. So, basic Lord profile. So 6-inch move, only T4, 5 wounds, that's decent. 3-up save with a 4-up end ball, so he's kind of resilient. He's got Khorne's Plasma Pistol, so basically a 1-shot, 2-damage pistol. It's alright, at least it doesn't overheat, so you do got that. And remember that, yeah, you get to shoot melee with it. For melee, he's got the Gore Child. So Gore Child is pretty good. 8 attacks, 9 attacks if you get the charge. Hitting on 2s, of course. Strength 6, -2, 3 damage each. That's pretty powerful. This guy's only 95 points, so that much damage on a 95-point model. You don't really see it that often, so going World Eater style and doing a buttload of damage. For his abilities, so his first one's really good. Legendary Killer, so while he's leading a unit, each time they make an attack, you can reroll a hit roll and or a wound roll of 1. You get both of those, that definitely helps up your damage output. Definitely like that a lot, that's very powerful. His second ability, so here's the downside. At the end of your charge phase, if he's not within engagement range, you have to take a leadership test. Admittedly, it'll be a 6-up, but if you fail it, you kill one of the bodyguards. Kind of stinks, but, Berserkers, they're not the most expensive thing ever, so it's not the worst if that ends up happening. And then his last abilities, his second best, I'd say, the reroll 1s is really good. But Berserker Frenzy, basically, if he hasn't fought and he dies, he gets fight on death, just automatically. No 4-up, no none of that, he just automatically does it. So if you happen to get in combat with a really powerful, Terminators or something like that, he will still, most likely, get his points worth out. I think that's very valuable. 95 points, he's a tidbit on the higher end, but with the reroll 1s and everything he gives, I do think if you're bringing Berserkers, I think he's A+. I think he's very good. It's nice too that we can bring him. His one of his big downsides is that you can't give him enhancements, so that will be an issue. Like I sort of mentioned earlier, we're kind of a spendy army, so not being able to afford another character that you can enhance will kind of hurt. But he still brings enough to the table. I think he's worthy of considering at least. Next up, we got Lord Invocatus. So this guy is quite interesting. He himself has scouts, so that means whatever unit he joins should have scouts as well. He also does a decent amount of damage. So Coward's Bane for melee has devastating wounds, going to be 7 attacks, 8 of charging. Hits on 2, strength 6, -2, 2 damage. So he'll help you clear out marines. He'll even help you blink a few wounds off vehicles and whatnot. So that's pretty valuable. He does also get the extra attacks with the Juggernaut. These are going to be lance, so they get +1 to wounds. So you wound pretty much everything on 5s or better. 4 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 6, only -1 AP, but 2 damage each. Very nice to have. This guy's tossing out a lot of damage. I will say he's quite on the spendy side. He's 155 points. You do get the 12-inch move, T6, which is great. 2-up, 4-up invol, fantastic. 8 wounds, pretty good. So, you are paying for it, but he does bring a lot to the table. Speaking of bringing to the table, his first ability is counterattack. So while he's leading a unit, they're eligible to fall back and charge. Extremely powerful for an army that's mainly going to be melee. That is extremely powerful. A lot of times you're going to have, you have to deal with chaff or screens or whatever. This helps you get around them and pick the units you actually want to get in combat with, so that's very useful. The scouts, obviously, too, helps you get into those charges first, helps you get into the screens. His second ability, very good, Road of the 8 Bloody Steps. Essentially, at the start of the battle, you pick 2 other units that don't already have scouts, and you give them scouts 6-inch. Like I've mentioned before, we want to get in combat ASAP. We need to get in combat as soon as possible. Anything that helps you do that, excellent to have. Might also help you get behind cover if you, you know, if depending how the board looks. I will say it's infantry only. I should have mentioned that, but that alone almost makes him worth bringing. I don't like the fact he's 155 points. It's kind of a hard pill to swallow, but he brings enough to the table that he might end up being an auto-include. I'm kind of torn on him. For now, I'll actually put him A+. I think I will put him above Khorne, but yeah, definitely brings some very powerful abilities to the table. Definitely worth looking at. Also, too, he can be attached to Eightbound and Exalted Eightbound as well as Berserkers. So that's definitely something to keep in mind when looking at that guy. All right, next up, we got Demon Prince. This guy has one of the more powerful abilities that Chaos has access to. So his first ability is Infernal Fortitude. While a friendly World Eater's infantry is within 6 inches, they get a 4-up invul. That is incredibly powerful, because you are definitely going to be getting shot at as you try to make your way up the board. So getting a 4-up invul on units that may not normally get any sort of invul, very powerful to have. I will say, you're paying for it. Definitely paying for it. This is one of the units that they gave a price bump to. 220 points for that dude. That is definitely the most expensive prince. Is that worth the ability you're getting? Maybe, maybe. Demon Prince profile, so he is T10, 8-inch move, 2-up save with a 4-up invul, 10 wounds, so fairly resilient. He's got the 3-shot Infernal Cannon, so essentially a heavy bolter. And then he does have the whoop-ass Khorne sword, so 6 attacks, 7 if you charge, hit on 2s, strength 10, 11 if you charge, negative 2 AP, 3 damage. The whole getting to strength 11 on charge is actually pretty useful, because that means all of a sudden you're winning vehicles on 3-ups. Definitely want to have that. His other ability, by the way, is Devastating Assault. So if he made a charge, he gets dev wounds on the profile, so that helps. You only get like 3 mortal wounds on average, but this guy is very powerful. If you're bringing a lot of infantry, like the 4-up invul alone is worth looking at. The huge issue is going to be that 220 points. It's kind of ridiculous. Keeps me from putting him in S tier. I guess that makes sense because that is so strong, but it's kind of hard to rate. I think I'll put him in A. Potentially belongs in A+, just because the amount of damage, and then maybe you give him, you know, give him some of the enhancements as well. For now, I'll put him in A, though. Demon Prince with Wings. As per usual, he's a little bit cheaper than the foot version. I believe he's 215. Exact same profile as the other, except he is T9 and only gets 12-inch move. So with Fly being this edition, that's, you know, it's good to have 12-inch. What am I saying? Especially with Advanced and Charge, but still. For abilities, so at the start of the fight phase, enemy units within engagement range must take a battle shock. Whatever. You know, maybe it'll prevent a stratagem, but otherwise it's not the best thing. And potentially help you score secondaries, but still. On a 215-point unit, his second ability, Oath the Khorne. So at the start of the battle, you choose one unit, and basically you get to reroll all hits and wounds with this guy versus that unit. That's pretty powerful. You give him the plus D3 strength and attacks, or attacks and damage relic. This guy will be chewing up knights and whatnot, so that is quite powerful. That said, I'd rather bring the other guy for the 4-up invul, I think. He will be a beat stick. People will definitely be scared shitless of him. But can you really afford him if you're also bringing Angron and that sort of stuff? Not so sure about that. Because he's a beat stick, and because he does have the 12-inch move, which does mesh well with the Advance and Charge, I will still put him in B. Maybe he belongs in C. I'm not too sure. Ooh, okay, Master Execution. This guy's S tier, super S tier through and through. He's only 80 points. Sure, he's got a pretty measly profile, so 6-inch move, T4, 3-up save with no invul and only 4 wounds. Not the strongest guy ever, but he is a character. Do be mindful of snipers, but otherwise, he, you know, you should be able to keep him safe. His Axe of Dismemberment is great. 5 attacks plus 1 if you charge. I'm gonna quit saying that, by the way, but oh, maybe. Hitting on 2s, strength 7, maybe 8, minus 2 AP, 2 damage. Does have precision and dev wounds, so that's very powerful. His first ability is pretty much why you take him. So while he's leading a unit, aka Berserkers, you get the fight first ability. That is key for a melee army. I would almost argue if you're bringing 3 units of Berserkers, like you bring 3 Master Executions potentially. Something that is different, he's not a lieutenant, so you can't like have 2 characters, but still, fight first alone on an 80-point model incredibly good to have. His second ability, Murderous Swing. So anytime he attacks a character, you reroll the hit and the wound. With his dismemberment and the dev wounds, like, that's pretty damn good. This guy will chew through smaller characters quite easily. Yeah, he goes straight to S tier. Straight to S tier. Like I said, if you're bringing a bunch of Berserkers, you potentially bring a bunch of this guy as well. I like him a lot, especially if you throw the Relic on him. Like, then he will definitely chew through most, if not all, characters. I love him a lot. World Eater's Lord on Juggernaut. So he's 120 points, so a bit better than Invocatus. 10-inch move, T6, 2-up save with a 4-up invul, so pretty resilient. 7 wounds. We like it. He does have, so just like Invocatus, he brings a lot of melee damage. So again, he'll be clearing up Marines left and right. 7 attacks, hit on 2, strength 6, -1 AP, 2 damage each. Wish had better AP, but whatever, it's good enough. For his abilities, the first one is Aggressive Advance. So while he's leading a unit, you can reroll any or all of Advance rolls, Charge rolls, and Blood Surge rolls. Very powerful to have. Anything that makes those more consistent, like those are some of the more important abilities for our units. Anything that makes them more consistent, very powerful to have. He can also be attached to the 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound, so do bear that in mind. His second ability is Bloody Stampede. It's, it's alright. Basically, whenever you finish a charge, you roll D6. On 2 to 3, they take 1 mortal wound. 4 to 5, they take D3. And on 6, they take D3 plus 3. Never hurts to have more mortal wounds, but I'd trade that for something else if I could. He's pretty alright. 120 points isn't terrible. I think Invocatus is better at the end of the day, so I won't place him too high, but he's pretty decent. I'll put him in B tier. Khorne Berserkers, so the frontline troops. These guys, they're hard to rate. 115 points, they're not the most efficient. Even when decked out with all the melee stuff, like, they're still not that much better than just Legionaries. They are a bit better, especially when you factor in the +1 for the charges and everything. But, not the best troops ever, but they're not bad. I would say they're mid-tier. Speaking of their melee, so most of them got the chain blades, essentially an accursed weapon, so hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 1, 1 damage, it's alright. And then 1 and 5, I wish there was more, but 1 and 5 can bring the Eviscerator. Only 3 attacks, still hitting on 3s though, strength 8, -2, 2 damage, so that's alright, that'll help you kill Marines and whatnot. They do have a pretty good ability, especially if you bring a max like 10-man squad, so Blood Surge. Each time an enemy unit is selected to shoot, if they shoot you and you lose 1 or more models, you get to make a Blood Surge move. You roll a d6 and you move that many up to that many inches towards the enemy unit, but you do have to move as close as possible to said enemy unit. And you can go into engagement range, so that's pretty sick. If you're within like 5 inches and you get a good enough Blood Surge roll, that's awesome that you can get in a melee and suddenly you can't be shot. What's cool, too, it doesn't mention anything about can only be used once per phase or anything, so you can use this as much as you want. I think that is actually, like, it's easy to underrate that. If you go up against an army that somehow isn't very well at killing Marines, or maybe they got the 4-up invul or whatever, there's times when they'll be shot multiple times. They do have to kill a model, but still, they get shot multiple times, so you get to use that roll multiple times. I think that is actually pretty powerful. Also, too, like I sort of mentioned, if you're within 6 inches of somebody, they're going to be pretty hesitant to shoot you, unless they know that they can clear you out. The whole having to end as close as possible, I was going to say, like, maybe you could even get behind cover, like, out of line of sight, but that does kind of gum that up a little, where it'll make it a bit harder to do that. That said, you could potentially get inside a cover, and that'll be helpful. They also, too, can bring an icon, so this is pretty clever. Each time you make a Blessings of Khorne roll, you can re-roll 1 of the dice, so that can be invaluable and very important to have, so I actually like that a lot. They're a bit more spendy than I'd want. I wish they were like 105 even, or something like that, but, like, they help you control the board. They do put out a fair bit of damage. They are fairly resistant. They're Marines. I do like them a fair bit. It's hard because of the price. Also, too, you can attach characters to them. You give them fight first. Like, damn, dude, I don't want to get in melee with those guys. I think I'll put them very top of B. What do you guys think? Like, do they belong higher? Like, am I underrating them? Or, I'm not too sure with them. But for now, top of B. They're solid, basically. Jackals. So these guys cost a bit more than normal cultists. They're 75 points, but they do have a fair bit of melee. If you could get them into melee, they got a fair bit of it. Actually, using unit crunch as well, for the points efficiency, they were actually equal to Berserkers. I forget exactly what it was, but they were equal to into like Marines, so like their main target normally. They do bring a pretty good ability, so essentially they have sticky objectives. Because of that, I kind of feel like one of them potentially is an auto-include in most lists, because you can just sit them on the back objective, get your sticky and then move them forward if you want, or keep them, more likely, keep them back there and like screen from deep strike and whatnot. I do wish they were a little cheaper. 75's kind of sucks, but they're not bad at all. They have a bunch of sustained hits on their attacks. And don't ever forget they get the +1 attack, +1 strength if they charge. So that is helpful with these guys. Basically brings them up to like Marine or even better profile, at least strength wise. So they're not bad at all for 75 points. I'm sure some people too will argue they're better than Berserkers. I actually like Jackals a fair bit. Like I said, I kind of think you bring one each list, just for that sticky objectives. I'm hesitant to put them above Berserkers, but they are cheaper. I kind of think like you're more likely to bring Jackals than Berserkers, potentially. I'm not sure I put them A. I am. My list, I'm going to put them A, but again, because I think you'd usually consider bringing at least one of them. You need something cheap to set on objectives. World Eaters, Terminators. So unfortunately, I think of all... So they do have a Terminator profile, so you got that. But I think of all the Terminator profiles, they're probably the worst ones. Reason being, their ability kind of sucks. Essentially, if you're below starting strength, so you have to die first, you add 1 to your hit roll. And then if you're below half strength, you add 1 to the wound roll as well. They're pretty expensive, so you won't normally be bringing 10-man Terminators, especially if you got Angron in the list, eating up a bunch of points as is. So it kind of sucks that you have to like get hurt first. I don't like abilities like that. Otherwise, they're a basic Terminator squad. Give them a bunch of power fists. They will do some damage. They are very resilient with a 2-up, 4-up invul, but yeah, I think you got way better options. They're 195 points, so super expensive too. I think they just go C tier. You can use them. Getting cover's pretty easy in 10th, but and deep strike's very powerful as well. Rapid ingress or whatever, very handy to have, but I just too expensive for what you're bringing, I think. Eightbound. All right. I freaking love these guys' models for sure, and the idea behind them, they got 8 different demons like possessing them. Like, come on, that's pretty cool. But the first time I looked at them and saw the points, I hated them. I was like, oh my god, 3 models for, what, 155 points? Like, that's ridiculous. And it still is. Like, don't get me wrong, that is ridiculous. That is way too expensive. 3 wounds for 50-plus points? Nah, that hurts. But they do have a 9-inch move with a 6-inch scouts. So you gotta think first turn is essentially like a 15-inch movement. That's pretty good, especially if you manage to get the advance and charge. They are T6 with a 3-up and a 5-up invul, so they're fairly resilient. And again, 3 wounds, pretty helpful. There is that way to give them a 6-up feel no pain, which you'd be very tempted to give these guys. They have excellent melee. These guys are like the quintessential glass cannon. Any like infantry or any like sub-vehicle unit that you get them into melee with, you might as well just pick them up. Like, they're going to get screwed. Their main one, so 8-bound Eviscerators, it's 6 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 5, -2, 2 damage, fantastic. And then the leader has a Lacerator, so it's 4 attacks, hit on 3s, strength 9, -2 AP, 3 damage. So very powerful. Like I said, they're going to chew through a lot of units. Their aura is also very powerful. So, 6-inch aura, any World Eaters unit within 6 inches, each time they make a melee attack, they get to reroll a wound roll of 1, and then if their target is below half strength, you just reroll all wound rolls, period. That's very powerful. Anything that helps your army get even more damage through is definitely something we want to bring. You can only bring them in units of 3 to 6. So, they do so much damage, and they bring utility to the army, that I do think you bring them along. 155 points is ridiculous, though. They are going to... So basically, you gotta keep them behind cover. You gotta find ways to keep them alive. Maybe even reserve them or whatever. Because again, like, enemy units are going to be gunning for these guys for obvious reasons. That said, they bring enough to the table that I do think they belong pretty high. you probably bring one in every list, at least for the aura. And if you bring them in MSU, so the 3-man squad, like, you should be able to hide them. Also, too, the new Leviathan mission packs, the, like, suggested boards they show, a lot of them are pretty good at blocking line of sight, so I do like that a lot. Hopefully, hopefully, you know, people adhere to that, like, tournaments use those. So, too expensive. That hurts them a lot. But they bring enough to the table that I do think they go A+. I wish if they got a price break, I'd put them in S, like, right away, but I like them a fair bit. Like I said, you probably bring one in each list. Exalted Eightbound, similar to the other guys. These guys are way too expensive. What is it? I think it's 180. Yeah, 180 for 3 of them. So 60 points each on a 3-wound model. Same profile as the other guys. They don't get the scouts either, so that kind of hurts on the whole trying to get into melee. But they do get a 6-up Feel No Pain, which you can turn into 5-up, so they'll be somewhat resilient. They do have crazy amount of damage. These guys can, like, take down knights and whatnot, especially if you spend the CP for the +1 to wound. They will take down knights. Speaking of which, so I did the math hammer. I used Unit Crunch beforehand, and it's actually funny. So if you brought a 6-man unit, and you gave the leader the paired chain fist, which I think you should do every single time, you actually you do more damage with the eviscerators. You do 22 damage to a knight with the +1 wound stratagem than if you just went all chain fist. That said, the chain fists still do 20 damage on average, so potentially you still stick with those just so you don't have to worry about, you know, variance. But I thought it was funny. For their ability, Overwhelming Wrath. So each time an enemy unit within 6 inches of this unit is selected to fall back, they must take a leadership test. If the test had failed, they can't fall back. That's very powerful. It's definitely good to have. Kind of sucks that they have to, you know, take the leadership test, but, you know, still good to have. These guys are too expensive. Like, I want to bring them because they're sick-ass, you know, sick-ass model, man, and the damage they put out is crazy. These are basically your anti-knights, anti-anything, really, but way too expensive. I want to put them in B, but I think maybe you bring them still, but they're too inefficient for what you're getting. So for now, I think I put them in C. Potentially they go above Terminators, but yeah, I hope they get a price break. Chaos Spawn. So these guys, they're only 65 points in World Eaters, so that's pretty decent. 8-inch move, T5, only a 4-up save, no invul or anything. They do have a 5-up Feel No Pain. Remember, you can turn that into a 4-up Feel No Pain with the Blessing. So that is pretty clever. Essentially doubles their wounds at that point, and actually double their wounds, so that'd be 16 wounds at 65 points. Like, if you were to use that, which you probably won't use till later in the game, that makes them pretty, you know, pretty clever. Their attacks are, so they're random, and they only hit on 4s. D6 plus 2 attacks. If you roll hot, they'll be great. Strength 6, minus 1 AP, 2 damage, so they're okay. They're okay in melee. And then they do, each player's command phase, they do regen up to D3 wounds. That said, anytime somebody shoots at them, they're almost assuredly going to die, or at least one of the models is going to die, so I'm not sure how well I rate that. These guys, hard to rate, because if you give them the 4-up Feel No Pain, that's pretty damn good. Also, too, they are quite cheap, only 2 models, so kind of easy to hide. I think I will actually put them in B tier. Normally, I rate Spawn kind of low, but 65 points and what they bring, yeah, I think they go in B tier. The Land Raider. So, transports, obviously, are quite valuable for World Eaters. I will say, you're shooting for that advance and charge, so you don't always need it, but this guy does have the assault ramp, and so you can practically guarantee, or you can get close to guaranteeing a first turn charge, because you do get the plus 2-inch movement as well. So that's kind of worthy of consideration. They are expensive, 255 points, so that's quite spendy, but you do also get the las cannons on top of that, so you get some of the ranged anti-tank, which we like. They can also carry the 8-bound, so you can have a full 6-man squad at 8-bound and toss them in here, so that is pretty cool. As always, though, I don't like spending 255 points on essentially 3 las cannon shots and the transport, but they're pretty valuable. Having a tough transport at T12, I do think they go, I think they're just solid all around. They go B tier. As always, I wish they were cheaper, but for what they bring, like, yeah, that's pretty fair. Rhino, so pays more than the other books. Thousand Suns get them for 75. We get them for 85 for some odd reason. You know, it's a Rhino. 12-inch move, T9, which is pretty good. 3-up save, 10 wounds, which is great. He does repair 1 wound at the start of each of your command phases. Again, those transports are good, man. You put some Jackals or put some Berserkers in here, sit this guy on an objective, wait for it to get blown up. Like, you know, that potentially will buy you a turn or two of scoring. So that is pretty valuable. I think he belongs with the Land Raider, essentially. Just solid all-around B tier. They're probably the same, but I'll put them right behind the Land Raider, just because, you know, I want the las cannons and whatnot, and the assault ramp. I think those, you know, put them just a tidbit higher than the Rhino. Predator, Destructor, and Annihilator. So both of these are only 130 points in World Eaters, so that's appreciated. As always, go the Annihilator. We got way more than enough anti-infantry or ways to kill infantry that I would go with the las cannons. You know, a ranged vehicle on a World Eaters list, that's very valuable and very handy to have. 130 points, totally fair. I would just, like I mentioned, just put las cannons on everything. So 3 las cannon shots, one of them twin-linked. He does get to reroll damage rolls of 1, so that helps with the variance on the damage output. So 100%, I think they're worthy of consideration for World Eaters. I'm going to put them in A tier, just straight up A tier. I'll actually put them top of A tier because they're so much cheaper than the Demon Prince. And then, Defiler. So, it's a Defiler. You pay a little bit more. I think he's 210. Yeah, he's 210. Like, come on, GW, why? But, guy has a pretty good profile and brings some pretty damn strong weaponry. So, 8-inch move, T10, which is great. 3-up save with a 5-up invul and 14 wounds. It's got the Scuttling Walker, so he ignores monsters and vehicles, so you can ignore, like, Angron and other tanks and whatnot. Also ignores terrain that's 4-inch height or less. Very valuable. This guy's always been a pain in the butt to move around the table. That was always, like, his biggest attraction. That helps with it. Defiler Claws. Excellent, excellent melee profile, especially because you're getting an additional attack with it. So 5 attacks without the charge. Hitting on 3s, strength 16, fantastic. Minus 3 AP, D6 plus 1 damage. You gotta think, too, if you use the tank shock stratagem on this guy, woo! That'll be a lot of mortal wounds you're tossing out. I like this guy a fair bit. He's a bit too expensive. Definitely on the spendy side for what you're getting, but I think he definitely brings some value to World Eaters. Not sure I put him in A tier, but I'll put him solid B tier, upper B tier, I think. If you got Defilers and you love the model as much as I do, might as well bring him. Forge Fiend. So, like with every list, this guy's like an all-star in my eyes. Especially with World Eaters, you need some ranged weapons to hit across the table, and this guy helps shore that up. Yeah, sure, you can bring War Dogs, and you probably should, but having a native option that gets all the bonuses and other stuff you get, very good to have. As usual, you probably go the 3 Ectoplasm Plasma. So, 36-inch range, blast, very important. D3 shots each, but you got 3 of them. Hitting on 3, strength 10, we love it. Minus 3 AP, 3 damage, so very good to have. I would definitely bring this guy probably every single time. He's a fair price, so he's cheaper than CSM, but more than Thousand Suns, of course. Only 150 points, so I would bring 3 every single list. He does have that meh ability, so basically, if you just hit a unit in the shooting phase, and they're an infantry, they have to take a battle shock test. Yeah, you know, prevent some stratagems, might help you score secondaries, but definitely not something to care that much about. As usual with the Forge Fiend, I'm putting him straight in S tier. Very valuable to have. I would bring at least 2, probably 3 every single list. Hell Brute. So this guy has such a memey ability that I love. Frenzy. Each time an enemy targets this model, after they finish making their attacks, this guy gets to shoot back at them, as though it's the shooting phase or the fight phase. So that's freaking hilarious. If multiple units end up shooting at this guy, you get to shoot back at multiple of them, because it doesn't limit it to like once or whatever. So that's like, it's a meme, but I freaking love it. There is something to be aware of. So for the fight phase, the main rulebook says any unit can only fight once in the fight phase. It's like black and white. It's just right there. So he doesn't really get to fight multiple times, but you do basically get an interrupt when he's attacked. Also, too, it doesn't mention if he still gets to do it if he dies or not. I kind of think he still does, even if he dies. Like, it just says when they finish making their attacks, he gets to attack. So that That makes the calculation on this guy a bit different, because potentially you'll be shooting multiple units multiple times, basically in both shooting phases. So that's pretty damn strong. Because of the fight phase restriction, and the fact too that, you know, we're world leaders, we need range, I think I'd just go full range with this guy. So as usual, twin las cannon and missile launcher, I kind of think just stick with that and try to bait your opponent into shooting him. He is 155, I think. 150, so not too bad for the output you're getting. Also, too, you know, T9 2-up save, that's pretty strong. The other option, you know, you just go one las cannon and then the Hellbrute hammer in case you want to go multi-roll. I mean, y'all are world eaters, so potentially you still want that melee. I like him a lot. I don't think he's like S tier. I'm not even sure he's A+ tier or whatever, but I think he goes in A tier, probably above the Predators. If you can bait your opponent into attacking them, like, you should hopefully get your money's worth out of them. I like it a lot. That's just a really fluffy and unique rule, too. Helldrake. So, Helldrake, I normally rate pretty low. In World Eaters, I'd say World Eaters is the best version of him. One of the reasons is going to be his ability. So, Swooping Predator. Each time this model ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit you moved over, and you roll 2d6. For each 4-up, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. So, I mean, like, that's not a lot, but that's some good chip damage. There will be times when you do 2d3 mortal wounds. That's pretty good to have. You also, too, you got to think, in hover mode, this guy's got the 20-inch move, so with advance and charge, or even without advance and charge, there's very high odds that this guy will get the turn 1 charge. All that said, he is a freaking Helldrake, he is a flyer. Also, too, because in GW's Infinite Wisdom, they want to charge more for this guy. He's 215, which is quite spendy, but he has okay damage, you know, Helldrake Claws. If you can manage to get in melee with a fly unit, which very much you'll want to target for obvious reasons, you get anti-fly 2-up, dev wounds. You hit the 6 attacks with the charge, hitting on 3s, strength 7, it'll be 8, -1 AP, 2 damage. So this guy, you know, he puts out an okay amount of hurt, and with the near guaranteed first turn charge, like, that's valuable. Also, too, he can just run distraction. You can use him for threat saturation and distraction, so that's also valuable. He's very spendy, but I think because of that, the charge, the odds of him making a charge, like, that jumps him up pretty high in my eyes. I think he goes in A tier. Probably, I don't like the price one bit, so I'll put him below the Predator, but still, don't worry too much about considering the Helldrake. Like, he should get his points worth. If you make that charge, he'll get his points worth. Even if he doesn't kill anything, like, just distraction-wise, he'll be pretty good. Malarfiend. So it's a shame GW freaking hiked up the price on this guy a boatload for some odd reason. He's 175 points, which is a lot. That said, so 10-inch move, T10, 3-up save with a 5-up invul, 12 wounds, so he's fairly resilient. 10-inch move is great as well. Again, advanced and charge, we like that. Always go Magna Cutters. Even though World Eaters are, like, good at melee, I would still go with those Magna Cutters. Helps do what we need this guy for, which is, like, hurt big stuff, whether it be vehicles or elites or characters or whatever. So always go the Magna Cutter. Malarfiend Fist, very powerful, so 6 attacks base, hit on 3s, strength 14, -2, which is a little higher, but whatever. D6 +1 damage, that's great. This guy will chew through even knights. For his ability, he's got Scent of Blood. Each time you make a charge roll, if one or more of your targets are below starting strength, you get to add 2 to the roll. That's amazing. Getting easier charges is very important for World Eaters. Also, too, each time he makes a melee attack, if they're below their starting strength, you add 1 to the hit roll as well. So if you got a knight and you just plinked a single wound off him, even with a random bolter or something, this guy's going to be hitting on 2s all of a sudden. Very powerful. This guy, so hitting on 2s especially, like, this guy will chew through stuff. Give him lethal hits or whatever. Like, I like it a lot. Really hate that he's 175 points. That's way too much. Even 160 would have been an easier pill to swallow, but he brings something valuable to the table. I do like him a lot. Also, it's World Eaters, man. We want like, ultra powerful melee. The cost prevents him from being A+ or S tier, I think, but I'll probably put him top of A, I think. What do you guys think? Like, am I overthinking the points cost, or is the easier charges valuable? You gotta think, too, if you bring him in from reserves or whatever, that suddenly is a 7-inch charge, potentially even a 6-inch if you got Angron nearby. So that can be fairly reliable, especially if you spend the CP on it. Hate that cost, though. Why, GW, why? And last up, we got the big pimp himself, Khorne, Lord of Skulls. One of those models you, like, want to bring. I know it's like a lot of people debate how he looks. I actually think he's sick, dude. And if you think about the lore, too, so the lore is those big tanks behind him. It's the blood of murderers. He uses the blood of murderers to fuel himself, which I think is, like, hilarious. I think, too, he, like, sprays it on people. Like, such cool lore behind this guy. This guy brings some value, so you can kit him out for, like, anti-knight or anti-vehicle if you want. You can change out, like, the Gatling for the Skull Hurler. Not sure I would, but you could. So that's kind of the route I would go. I would keep the Gatling gun, but otherwise bring the Demon Gorge Cannon. Like, yeah, it's short range or whatever, but it's Khorne, Lord of Skulls, man. You want to get him in melee anyways. Speaking of melee, hot diggity damn. So 5 attacks base, hitting on 3s, strength 16, AP 4, 8 damage each. This guy will kill knights left and right. For his ability, it's actually very powerful. So each time you make a Blessings of Blood Khorne roll, for each enemy unit that he destroyed in the previous battle round, you can add 1 or subtract 1 from one of those dice. So if he managed to kill like 2 units, which could happen, you might shoot something and then charge something, you would be able to change 2 of those dice, I do believe, change it by 1. That, again, helps you bring back Angron, but trying to bring him and Angron, like, that's almost half your list right there, so I'm not sure how viable that is, but he does have a crazy profile. 8-inch moves, so that's pretty decent. T13, so that's the toughest unit we got, that's very valuable. 3-up save with a 5-up invul, and then 24 freaking wounds. You can also give him the 6-up feel no pain, which, again, after, like, turn 3, you may as well. So you're definitely getting what you pay for with him. I like him a lot. I like him a lot. If you're not bringing Angron, and potentially even if you do bring Angron, I think you bring Khorne, Lord of Skulls. Yeah, if you're not bringing Angron, I would consider bringing the Khorne, Lord of Skulls. I like him so much. I love the model and the lore, too. I'm just going to put him right in the A+ tier. I think I'll put him, like, just middle of A+. Alright, so quick edit. So, GW, in their infinite wisdom, decided to nerf this guy and a freaking 105 points. CSM, they only got nerfed by 60 points, yet World Eaters, who arguably need this guy more, got nerfed to worse than that. So, instead of 420, nice. Now he's going to be, what, 525? Kind of, that's pretty damn spendy. That 105 points could bring you, that could bring you a unit of jackals to come score, buy a lot of stuff, basically. Pretty obvious. I still think he's pretty good. I still think, like, he's worth looking at for your list, especially if you're not bringing Angron or whatever. But 525 is going to be a kind of rough pill to swallow. I'm not going to move him too much. I'm just going to put him to A, just down to A tier. Potentially he goes lower, because that is quite expensive. Like, at that point cost, you maybe consider just bringing a regular Chaos Knight period, although they too went up a lot of points, so kind of debatable there. I'm still going to add this to the end of it, so my original review, like, still stays or whatever, but yeah, unfortunately, GW decided to kind of hurt him a little. Anyways, back to our... Alright, so that's going to be it for the World Eaters. Pretty easy army to review. They don't have that many data sheets. Hopefully they get some more this edition. I do think they need a few more. They definitely need, like, a Blood Crusher type unit. Like, I think that'd be awesome. Maybe even, like, some sort of, like, middling range, but really good melee unit would also be viable. I like World Eaters a lot. Like, the index is good enough that, like, I really want to run them. Yes, they got the issues with the whole being a melee army and a shooting army's world or whatever, but I think you'll see them get some tournament ranks. I think, too, when you start adding in Khorne demons, or just even just knights or whatever, like, I think that's going to up their power even more. Very good book, in my opinion. I like them a lot. Anyways, as always, let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you might have changed. This one, I do feel this index kind of hard to rank because the prices are kind of weird for some of the units, but I'd be curious to see how you guys might rank some of them versus how I did. As usual, if you like the content, please consider liking and subscribing. I really do appreciate that stuff when you do it. If you guys got any questions or anything like that, by all means ask. I read literally every single comment, and I try to reply to them when they're, like, valid or whatever. Also, too, I'm looking for more suggestions. I'm almost out of armies to review. Next is Chaos Demons, I believe. I'm probably going to split that into 4 books, but we'll see, or maybe do, like, 2 gods each. After that, I might do, like, what allies to use for each army. But then beyond that, you know, sky's the limit. So if you guys got any content you'd like to see or just any ideas you think might be useful, throw them out there, man. I'm all ears. Anyways, good luck out there, guys. Hope you have a good night, and thanks for watching.